In 1975, the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C. released a report that should have changed the world. They claimed they had found the Holy Grail of agriculture. They documented a plant so powerful that they predicted it would end malnutrition in the tropics and challenge the dominance of the soybean. The data was undeniable. Biologically, this plant is a monster. Its seeds contain up to 40% protein, more than many varieties of soy. Its leaves contain more vitamin A than spinach, and pound for pound, its dried seeds contain more calcium than cow's milk. It was dubbed the supermarket on a stalk. But 50 years later, walk into your local grocery store. What do you see? You see endless aisles of corn, you see mountains of soy, you see wheat. But the Holy Grail, it has vanished. It has been completely erased from the Western diet. Why? Did the science fail? No. The plan disappeared because it committed the ultimate crime against modern agriculture. It was too independent. It doesn't need the fertilizer industry. In fact, it makes its own fertilizer. And for a global market worth $200 billion, a plant that feeds itself is not a product, it is a threat. But before you rush out to find this lost treasure, I want to give you a small but critical note. Nature never gives away this much nutrition without a lock. Even though these seeds hold more calcium than cow's milk, there is a catch. If you don't know the proper way to process the mature seeds, they can actually shut down your digestion. You won't absorb the protein, and you will get sick. But don't worry, stay with me until the end of this video, and I will give you the specific deactivation protocol to safely unlock this nutritional fortress. Because once you know the secret, you aren't just growing a vegetable, you are growing a replacement for the grocery store. Welcome to Reclaimed Nature. This is the story of the winged bean. To understand why this plant is so dangerous to the industrial status quo, we have to leave the laboratories of 1975 and travel to the villages of the Old World. While American scientists were busy discovering it in reports, millions of people in the global South had already been surviving on it for centuries. In the Philippines, they know it as sigarilas. In India, it is revered as aprajita. In Indonesia and Thailand, it is the backbone of village nutrition. For these cultures, the winged bean wasn't a scientific curiosity, it was the ultimate poor man's insurance. History tells us that while Western agriculture was obsessed with specializing, growing one crop for oil, another for fruit, and another for animal feed, the ancestors of Southeast Asia demanded efficiency. They didn't have the luxury of waste. They needed a plant that did everything, and the winged bean delivered. It climbed up fences, covered rooftops, and thrived in humid tropical heat that would wither a lettuce plant in hours. It was known as a famine crop. When the rice harvest failed or when fish were scarce, the winged bean was there. It provided greens from its leaves, nectar from its flowers, crunch from its pods, and protein from its seeds. It was free, it was abundant, and it required absolutely zero chemicals to grow. So, we have a paradox. We have a plant that tastes good, heals the soil, and outperforms milk and soy in nutrient density. So why isn't it growing in every field in Nebraska? Why doesn't McDonald's serve winged bean burgers? The answer isn't about nutrition. It's about geometry. And it involves a mechanical villain that decided this plant was too wild to be tamed. If you want to know why you can't buy winged beans at Walmart, don't blame the farmer. Blame the machine. Modern industrial agriculture is built on one specific shape, the bush. Soybeans grow low, uniform, and obedient. They stand in straight rows, waiting perfectly for the massive blades of a combine harvester to sweep through. One machine can harvest 100 acres in a single day. This is the geometry of profit. The winged bean, however, follows the geometry of the jungle. It is a vine, a chaotic, aggressive, climbing vine. Give it a trellis and it will shoot up 12 feet high. It twists, it grabs, and it creates a dense wall of green biomass. Imagine trying to drive $1 million combine harvester through a wall of steel cables. It's impossible. To harvest the winged bean, you need something that modern industry is trying to eliminate: the human hand. You have to pick the pods manually. You have to care for the trellis. To the big ag corporations, this labor requirement makes the plant economically unviable. They chose the convenience of the machine over the quality of the food. But there is a second, darker reason why this plant was shelved. And this one involves a market worth over $200 billion, the fertilizer industry. Most high-yield crops like corn are nitrogen junkies. They suck the soil dry. To keep them growing, farmers are forced to buy massive amounts of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer every single year. It is a subscription model that keeps the chemical companies rich and the farmers in debt. But the winged bean is a rebel. According to a 1982 study on nitrogen fixation, this plant is a supernodulator. Its roots form a symbiotic relationship with soil bacteria to pull nitrogen directly from the air and lock it into the ground. It doesn't just survive without fertilizer, it actually manufactures its own fertilizer. If every farmer planted winged beans, the demand for synthetic ammonia would plummet. So, the industry made a choice. They promoted the crops that needed their products, and they ignored the one that would set the farmer free. But their loss is your gain, because while they can't figure out how to monetize it, science has proven that this plant is a biological miracle waiting for you to reclaim it.
They call it the winged bean, but a better name would be the shapeshifter. Most plants give you one thing. Carrots give you a root. Spinach gives you a leaf. Beans give you a seed. The winged bean gives you everything. It is 5 different vegetables in one DNA sequence. Let's look at the data that shocked the National Academy of Sciences. First, the leaves. In the tropics, vitamin A deficiency is a killer. But analysis shows that the leaves of the winged bean are among the richest sources of vitamin A of any tropical green. They can be eaten raw like spinach, providing essential micronutrients that rice-based diets completely lack. Second, the pods and flowers. The flowers taste like sweet mushrooms. The young pods are crunchy and delicious. But the real power lies in the seed. This is where the soy comparison gets embarrassing for the soy industry. Winged bean seeds contain up to 40% protein. That is rivaling the best soybeans on Earth. But they also contain roughly 18% oil. And here is the statistic that matters for anyone concerned about bone health or dairy intolerance. According to nutritional analysis, dried winged bean seeds contain significantly more calcium than cow's milk by weight. Think about that. You are getting the protein of meat and the calcium of milk from a bean that grows on a fence. But I haven't told you the best part yet. This is the secret that even many people who grow it today don't know. Underneath the ground, hidden in the dirt, the winged bean is doing something that almost no other legume does. It makes a potato. The roots of the winged bean thicken and swell into edible tubers, but these aren't just starch bombs like a regular potato. A regular potato is about 2% protein. It's mostly empty calories. The winged bean tuber? It contains up to 20% protein. That is 10 times the protein of a potato. It is a super tuber. It tastes like a nutty potato, but it feeds your muscles like a steak. You have a salad, a vegetable, a main protein course, and a starch side dish, all growing from the exact same stem. It is the ultimate survival efficiency. But there is a reason I warned you at the beginning. This abundance comes with a biological lock. If you eat the mature seeds without the key, you will regret it. Here's how to consume this powerhouse without poisoning yourself. Now, let's unlock the safety mechanism. Remember the warning about the mature seeds? The villain here is a compound called a trypsin inhibitor. It blocks your body from digesting protein. If you grind the raw, dry beans into flour or eat them undercooked, you are asking for severe stomach pain and zero nutritional benefit. But the solution is simple.
It's the same rule our ancestors applied to soy and kidney beans, but we forgot it. The survival protocol is soak and boil. You must soak the dry seeds for at least 24 hours. Then, you must boil them hard or pressure cook them for 30 minutes. Heat destroys the inhibitor. Once cooked, the lock is broken and the protein is yours. Note: the leaves, flowers, and young green pods do not have this problem. You can eat them raw or lightly sautéed right off the vine. Now, how do you grow this beast? Forget everything you know about neat, tidy rows. Do not treat the winged bean like a bush. It is a climber. If you let it crawl on the ground, it will rot. You need to think vertically. Build a strong trellis, an archway, a fence, because this plant produces massive biomass. A single vine can produce up to 150 pods. By growing up, you are multiplying your land efficiency. You are turning 1 square foot of dirt into 10 square feet of food production. And remember the hidden treasure, the tubers. To harvest the high-protein roots, you have to wait. The tubers form late in the season. You harvest them when the plant dies back as a final bonus gift from the earth. The story of the winged bean is a reminder of what we lost when we handed our food system over to corporations. They optimized for machinery. They optimized for shelf life. They optimized for fertilizer sales. They did not optimize for you. By planting this seed, you are doing something revolutionary. You are bypassing the dairy aisle for your calcium. You are bypassing the meat aisle for your protein. And you are firing the fertilizer companies. The supermarket on a stalk was shelved because it couldn't be controlled. It was too wild, too generous, too free. But that is exactly why it belongs in your garden. If you are ready to stop being a consumer and start being a producer, hit the like button. Subscribe to Reclaimed Nature, because the best foods aren't found in the grocery store. They are found in the history books we stopped reading. Knowledge is not lost. It is simply waiting for you to replant it.